Hey there, everyone. Couple of technical difficulties. We tried to go live and whoop, blank screen. So for someone like me, that's a hamana moment, but here we are with you live. I am so glad to see you again, and I missed you last week when we were out at the Design Bloggers Conference. So sorry I couldn't be with you live, and I hope you enjoyed the piece of video that we posted for you all about window treatment, snafus when it comes to misreading your fabric repeat. Okay, so today I'm here to take your questions live, but I wanted to start out by talking about something that I get so many questions about, and it has to do with mixing furniture styles. And when I was out at the Design Blogger Conference last week in Los Angeles, we had some great speakers there, and Miles Redd, phenomenal designer, and one of my design crushes, was one of the keynote speakers. And when Miles was speaking, he said something really wonderful that I thought, bring that home to my Tita peeps, and here it is. He said that it's important to remember that just one modern thing in a traditional space totally changes that traditional space. And one old thing or traditional thing or antique thing in a modern space totally changes that modern space. Very true words. Now notice that these truisms have nothing to do with a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's not about hodgepodge. Eclectic design is actually one of the most difficult things to do. There's a big difference between beautiful eclectic design and a mishmash of disparate, disconnected elements that just don't seem to want to be in a room together. So how do you learn to do that? Well, certainly we designers spend semesters in design school studying this, furniture history, and then from there, we are practicing in the field and taking continuing professional education and forever educating ourselves. So what do you do if you're a red-blooded, enthusiastic DIY design lover and you want to take a chance on doing some eclectic design, blending some design styles, working with things that you already own and bringing in a new trend? Maybe you want to bring in some farmhouse, or maybe you want to go from traditional into something more transitional. Or maybe you want to go from modern into something that's a little more eclectic and add a little more transitional elements to it. So what do you do? Well, certainly if you went to your closet right now, you and I would agree that in all of your beautiful clothing choices, not everything looks good with everything. Your favorite belt probably doesn't look good with every pair of jeans and every pair of trousers that you own. Favorite pair of boots, I just picked up a great pair of boots in LA, tried putting it on with a pair of trousers for work this week, looked terrible, but loved it with a pair of dark jeans. So the way color sits next to something else, color on one item sitting next to another item, really affects your perception of that item, not just the style of that thing. I'll say that again. The color of something massively affects your perception of it beyond just the style of that thing. Like those great boots that I tried to put on with a pair of trousers. I thought it would be great, but from a color perspective, it was just getting kind of muddy looking. So here's the story. When you're looking to meld design styles, let's say you want to add some modern into some traditional items, something that will really help you is to think about a balance, and you've heard me talk about this before if you've ever studied with me before in a workshop or taken any of my courses. You know I've talked about trying to do a 70-30 balance. 70% of the room should be in one flavor and then sprinkle in 30% of that other flavor. Do we designers do eclectic spaces that way? Not exactly. We get a little more involved and intricate, but again, I'm trying to simplify this so it'll definitely work for you as a talented and gorgeous DIY design lover. So that means you would take 70% of your room furnishings would be, let's say, farmhouse, and then the other 30% might be more glamorous, Hollywood glammy, to get you to that farmhouse glam. What you don't want to do is have 20%, 20%, 30%, 40%, 20%, where you are just meshing so many different design styles and disparate styles. As a DIY design lover, chances are good that you'll miss the bullseye and end up with something that looks kind of hodgepodge. So what you can think of doing beyond the 70-30 rule, beyond just looking at style, I'd like you to think about color. You can think about taking a unifying color through part of the room to connect two different styles in furniture. So you might recover a chair and a sofa that are in two different styles, but then you unify them with a really cool color that you put onto them, and that's how they suddenly become connected. The eye is looking for connection and differences when it looks at an interior. So if you use color to try to take disparate elements to get them to marry more beautifully, that can work for you, to include wood tone. Now the confusion comes in when you have a lot of hand-me-down furniture. Have you ever heard the word ersatz? I think it's spelled E-R, I don't spell very well, E-R-S-A-T-Z, ersatz, or E-R-Z-A-T-Z. Katie, how do you spell? I don't know. Neither of us know how to spell it. I believe it's E-R-S-A-T-Z. Ersatz, I think, is a German word, and it means a poor copy or imitation of something. A poor imitation of something. So ersatz furniture is a term you will hear within the interior design community when referring to a piece of furniture that is trying to be something else. So ersatz furniture from the 90s trying to look like country French provincial, meaning it was trying to look like beautiful Louis XV or XVI furniture, but it didn't do a very good job doing it. That furniture is going to be very hard to do in some of your eclectic blended interiors today. Or if you have ersatz, not great imitation quality visuals on, let's say, some Queen Anne cherry furniture from the 1980s or 90s that you inherited, that's going to be a little tough to transition into some of the trend styles that you're very likely interested in today. So that is a handicap if you've already purchased some things or inherited some things that really weren't great versions in their original format when they were purchased new, and now as they have survived the hand-me-down through the decades, they have not improved with age. So that gets a little tough. So what do you do if you have hand-me-down furniture? I was just talking to a student about this last night. If you have a lot of hand-me-down furniture and everything seems really disparate, or maybe you just moved to a new home and you've brought things from the last 2 decades, and you just feel like some of it just doesn't work anymore, you're probably right. So it's time to do a little bit of editing. And I know it's difficult to live with an empty space or slightly too little seating, but if you're a design sensitive, meaning the way your home looks really, really affects the way you feel in that home, you may want to live by the truism, nothing in a space is better than something bad. So if you have a lot of hand-me-down furniture, you may need to do some hard editing. And I know in an ideal world, you just want to, hey, just, blow it all up, start from scratch and, buy everything new. Well, sometimes you can't do that. And I just was reading Sheryl Sandberg's book called Option B, and she talks about Option B as being the thing that is the only thing you can do because Option A is off the table. And she tells a story where she was mourning the loss of her beautiful husband, and she had to give a children's birthday party, and she was saying tearfully to a good friend of hers, how am I going to give this children's birthday party? And her friend said, well, what ideally would you want? And she said, ideally I would want Dave to be alive, and I would want him here by my side to give that birthday party with me. And her friend said, well, basically option A is off the table, so let's kick the bleep out of option B. So when option A is just not on the table, replace all your furniture and start anew, and you've got to kick the bleep out of option B, be wise about it and know that you can do it. You can do some editing. You can start a fund to do some new purchasing, saving for those new items. You can recolor, you can reupholster, you can connect some things that seem disconnected by reupholstering in a great new fabric, great new pattern. You can add new life in those ways, but eventually you are going to get caught in the truism that design is an additive sport and it's the sum total of all things that gives you your final impression of a room. So I'm here to take your questions live. If you have any questions, happy to answer them. And just to recap, when you're trying to blend styles, little mid-century modern into a transitional interior, you want to take a traditional interior and maybe start to get it to go a little more farmhouse. What you want to do, again, think about taking a baseline, some grounding pieces, maybe 70% of that room in one trend style, and then you can start to sprinkle in that new trend style and a few key accent pieces and some lighting as well. You can do some editing. You'll have to do some editing. You'll have to remove some things that just don't work, recolor or recover them. And slowly and over time, you'll see that you really are starting to make some great inroads in blending those styles. And something else you can do, since you're not going to be going to design school to study design, spend some time on Pinterest and Google as well, styles that you really love, and notice what the overriding shapes are of that trend style. If it's Hollywood glam, notice the colors in Hollywood glam. You don't see a lot of brown leather. So if you have a big brown leather sofa, you're not going to be able to successfully take that into Hollywood glam, okay? So do a little bit of research, think about that 70-30 rule, think about making some wise changes, and know that you can always kick the bleep out of option B if replacing everything new and starting from scratch is not in the cards for you. So if you have any questions live, I'm glad to take those for you. Let me see if we have some comments coming in. I'm getting hellos from Nancy, hello from Lorna. Anna is here. That's my daughter, Anna. Hello, Anna. Why aren't you studying? But okay, I hope that paper is done. Teresa missed me from last week. No problem. All right, my lovelies. So if you have questions and you like to send those in to me live, I'm glad to take them. And until we get there, let me talk to you a little bit more about blending design styles. Okay. When you are looking to blend design styles because of a second marriage, that's a whole other ball of wax, and that's something that we get a lot of questions about as well. After death, after divorce, it gets pretty sticky when you're trying to edit furnishings. If there are children involved, if there are teenagers involved, go tenderly, go slowly, and think about keeping for the children in their spaces things that will keep them with a sense of continuity and good rootedness, right? Our nest has so much to do with the way we feel in our lives. And then in the common spaces, when you're blending new family with original family, that's when you're going to really work hard to preserve pieces. And that's where recovering, recoloring, refinishing would be a wise move. So at least you're holding on to things that are part of the familiar, and then you're doing a little bit of changing and moving things around by way of refinishing, which again, not a low cost or zero cost option. Same thing with upholstery. When young children are concerned as well, when blending furniture styles from his home and now her home, and getting the children on board with that, I do encourage you to get the children really involved in decorating their own rooms, getting them involved in selecting paint colors, if you can do new window treatments, really get them to buy into this new space and let them know how important it is to you that they feel wonderful in this new space as well. So blending styles from two different lives is one way to one challenge when it comes to blending furniture styles, and also working within styles themselves. Something else that I can share with you about blending furniture styles is to focus just on the shape of the furnishings that you're trying to blend. We started to talk about ersatz furniture, furniture that was really not a great version of what it was supposed to be. But something else you can think about with blending furniture styles is that if a lot of what you have is very big and bulky, it's probably not going to do very well with very, very delicate little teeny weeny things put in there. You'll have to think about keeping your weight moving through the space so that everything is holding its own. If you have a lot of heavily ornamented furniture, you probably don't want to add more heavily ornamented furniture. You might want to add some more simplified things to it. So again, that 70-30 rule that we were talking about earlier, you can think about taking those 70% heavily ornamented items, and then you can add, to that 30% tune, some more streamlined items as well. So hopefully that helps you without giving you a full furniture history lesson. Okay, so I do see I have some questions coming in here. So let me see. Beth is saying hello. Hello to you, Beth. Beth wants to know, my furniture is leather in my family room. It seems too large for the room. It's plain and needs some bling. So Beth is also saying, why are so many designers using only Sherwin-Williams paints? All right, I've got a lot to say to you on that, Beth. Okay. All right, so first of all, dark leather furniture. Adding bling to leather furniture can be difficult because leather is a very slick surface, isn't it? And we designers are always thinking not only about color and pattern and balance and rhythm and line and blending furniture shapes, we're also always thinking about varying textures. So with leather, one of the great things to do with leather is to add a velvet or a chenille. Think about it. On this slick, slippery surface, now you're adding something fluffy and soft, so it's a great contrast. So to add the bling on leather, rather than going into shine, I don't think you'll be happy with a shiny, glitzy fabric on leather or with, a sequined pillow on leather. Instead, I'd suggest you do a contrasting, luxurious something in a velvet if you can. And then maybe there's a little bit of trim on that velvet pillow that has a little bit of bling to it or sequin to it or a shiny covered button in a satin. But the pillow itself, get that into something that's soft, and I think you'll be happier with it, Beth. And then you can add bling around the room elsewhere. Maybe a wrought iron light fixture hung overhead that has a little bit of crystal to it. Maybe 2 great accent chairs that bring a new sensibility to the room, and certainly in the other accessories in the room. Maybe there's a mirror that's going to come in the room that has a nice shiny frame, a shiny silver frame, or even a mirrored frame. So you might bring in your bling in other elements, but not necessarily things that sit on the sofa, because when people try to do a silk or shiny fabric on leather, the end result tends to be kind of cold, okay? Those shiny fabrics as pillows look great on a chenille sofa or even a linen sofa, okay? Because that's a softer base material. And then Beth wants to know why so many designers use Sherwin-Williams paint. Sherwin-Williams paint. So I gotta get my teeth in. I have to be honest with you. I woke up last night at 1:30 in the morning and did not fall back to sleep until 5 o'clock this morning. Ouch. So I'm pooped. Even Katie's saying ouch. Am I getting a lot of pity over here? Anyway, so I was designing in my head. I couldn't help it. I woke up and just kept designing for some projects we worked on yesterday. Long day. Anyway, Sherwin-Williams paint versus Ben Moore paints. Why do we designers do Sherwin over Ben? A lot of painters, I don't do Sherwin over Ben, I do both. There are painters that prefer Sherwin because of its viscosity, meaning how it goes onto the wall, what the working time is. I think Ben has a fantastic deck, so I tend to specify Ben a lot, but I have had painters say, hey, do you mind if I mix this Ben color in a Sherwin product? And my answer is no, as long as I get the color. Ben Moore has gotten wise, and they have some colors that they say cannot be mixed accurately in another medium. Look, I love Faro and Ball. I love Faro and Ball, but when I'm working on a project with a $250,000 purchasing budget, we tend to max out on that budget pretty quickly. And so by the time it comes to paint, I'm not doing Faro and Ball. I'm in Sherwin, I'm in Ben, because I've got good color decks there, and I don't have to worry about blowing the budget on paint. A lot of our clients don't necessarily see the value in that gorgeous Faro and Ball. If you ever saw Faro and Ball paint, the way it takes color on the wall is spectacular. I always see it at the design show up in New York, the Kips Bay Show House. Looks gorgeous. So I think it depends on what your budget is, Beth. Budget is the queen of all design. And if you want to get really good coverage in as few coats as possible, there are some paint brands out there that give lousy coverage, and painters don't like working with them. I'm not going to say what those are, but I will tell you that Ben and Sherwin seem to be real go-tos. Tell you what, I think Ralph Lauren paints are great also. They do certain colors really, really well. They've got some beautiful chocolates and deep plums in particular. And there are a number of other paint brands out there that are really quite good. But again, we tend to do what we feel our clients will sign off on, and that the painters that we're working with tend to enjoy. Ben and Sherwin seem to be kind of that sweet spot in there, okay? So if you have a follow-up question, Beth, please feel free to ask me about it. Okay, my lovelies, well, listen, I don't see a lot of other questions coming in, so I think we're going to wrap out of this great Facebook Live. But before we do, follow us on Instagram at decor.genius. We love hearing from you during Facebook Lives. We love inspiring you on our Instagram page. So at decor.genius, and you can see us live there. Okay, my dears, I'm going to sign off here. Did one more question come in? Nope, that was a hello and an okay. I I do wait. I don't even know what that means, Beth, but okay, I'll take it. Nancy, get some rest. Thanks so much for your great advice. Nancy, I'm taking a nap right after this, baby cakes. I'll see you guys next Tuesday. I'm talking about window treatments. Hi. Do you take a nitroglycerin tablet before you look at that custom window treatment bid? No. I'm going to demystify custom window treatments for you and help you out with some ready-mades as well, and I'll be taking your questions. I promise we'll do our best to get out here live. Sorry for that little technical blip that we hit when we started, and I'll see you next week, peeps, live, 4 p.m. here, Eastern Standard Time, talking to you about window treatments. See you then.